How do I convince my husband that he's not the asshole for keeping an heirloom his mother wants? This past summer, my husband was given a small portion of his maternal grandmother's wedding china as an heirloom. We were shocked, but when we called them, my husband's grandmother told us that she wanted him to have the heirloom because he was like a son to her, and she asked us not to tell any other family members that we had them. For added context, my mother-in-law is an alcoholic and frequently abandoned my husband as a child, leaving him with various family members and friends, including his grandmother, who did a large portion of the child rearing. We thanked them for honoring us with his heirloom, and we put the china in a safe place. A couple of months later, my husband unfortunately had to be hospitalized in a mental health emergency. This happened to be the same week we had to pack up our place to move, and because our baby was only 4 months old, I asked my family for some help. The day everyone was helping with packing, I had to run an errand, and when I came back, I noticed that my mother-in-law had made a pile by the door of items that she was taking home. It was in this pile that I found our box of china. I asked my mother-in-law to leave the china until my husband got out of the hospital and they could discuss it together. The following 2 hours, she was on and off hysterically crying, explaining how when she was 18, her mother had promised her this wedding china and promised her the entire set would only belong to her. According to her, the exact box we had, she had misplaced years ago and we had it by mistake. I stood my ground that the china had to remain in our apartment until my husband was out of the hospital. A few weeks later, my husband and I were settled in our new home when mother-in-law randomly texted him about how she still had resentment towards me because I felt entitled to an heirloom that was promised to her, and was complaining that I refused to let her reclaim something that was rightfully hers. I was so angry that she was projecting this onto me that I took a couple of days to cool off and had a session with my therapist before we asked her to have an in-person conversation about it. Her demeanor and behavior during the in-person conversation was very similar to when she first tried to take the china while helping me move. This time, she claimed that she had called her parents, who confirmed that it was a mistake that they sent us the china and that they told her that we should return it to her immediately because it wasn't theirs to give away. Strange, because it's literally their wedding china. We did not come to the resolution my mother-in-law was hoping for, and because we are keeping the china, we were accused of not respecting her as an elder, stealing from her, and becoming selfish and greedy. Afterwards, my husband was torn, wondering whether or not he should return the china to her because of how emotionally distressing it is for her not to have the complete set. I've since encouraged my husband to keep the china whenever he brings it up because it was rightfully given to him, and the gesture meant so much. However, I also want him to have them just out of spite of my mother-in-law.
There you go.
I'm tired of her bulldozing through my husband like she has his entire life. How do you support a partner through a toxic parent like my mother-in-law? From an outsider's perspective, does it seem like I'm pushing my agenda too much with my advice? Okay, so the update, it hasn't been very long since my post, but my husband has already come to the decision regarding the china. Surprisingly, he has decided that the easiest thing for himself, his grandmother, and our peace is to just give the china to mother-in-law.
Yeah.
As his partner, I fully support him making the decision. All of your comments have helped so much, especially the ones about how it's really up to my husband because it's his family and not mine. Another one of you said that this is like giving the baby her bottle, and that's how I would like to see it for my own processing. But that's because I feel petty over how she projected entitlement onto me when she was trying to take something from her son while he was in a vulnerable place. But really, this was a relatively small event in the grand scheme of things. Her alcoholism, narcissistic behavior, and childish manipulation goes far beyond this china. All that we can really control is how often we are around her, and we have the boundary set in place with her drinking, especially when it comes to our baby being around her. If it were my choice, we would be no contact, but my husband still sees hope in her changing her behavior. Despite the reality of her behavior facing us, I think he has to find a way to deal with her on his own time. In the meanwhile, I will protect my baby, myself, and support my husband in the process of him healing from his mother's wounds. Thanks, comforters. My now ex-wife thought I was bluffing when I told her I wanted a divorce. So first off, I want to say I love the content and I've listened to almost every episode. I also want to give a shout out to Sam and the Ottoman Empire.
Oh.
So I have been divorced for almost a year now, and I thought I would share my story. To keep this somewhat short, I will be leaving out a lot of details, but I'm willing to answer any questions that anyone has. So 2 years ago, I was involved in a severe car accident where I had a garbage truck pull out in front of me, and I did not have any time to respond, and I hit it going 55 miles per hour. I'm still going through recovery, and I have been through multiple procedures to try and help get the pain under control so that I can return back to work. I also had my appendix rupture, and I had an emergency surgery in May of 2023. Looking back, I can see now that she was being extremely distant from me, but at the time, I didn't notice because I was more focused on my recovery and physical therapy to try and get back to work. After I had my appendectomy done, she became very distant and very secretive with her phone. A few months later, she finally told me that she was feeling overwhelmed and stressed out about the situation I was dealing with, and said she wanted to go stay at a friend's house to talk with her about her feelings and clear her head. Well, 2 days later, it was her birthday, and I found out that she had made plans to go to dinner with some guy from work. She didn't end up going because he did not respond to her text messages. We had an argument at the time, and I was willing to move on from it because we had been together for 14 years, married for 12. Just a few weeks later, I found out she was looking for an apartment, and I told her if she moved out, the marriage is over, and I would ask for a divorce. The next day, she came home and told me she had just went and looked at an apartment, and she signed the papers that day and was waiting on the approval of the background check and employment verification. The next day, I found out she had been texting another guy for about 4 months, and also found out that she told him she wanted him and wanted to know when and where to meet up. When I confronted her about it, she said she was joking and nothing happened. She ended up moving out in August 2023, and 2 weeks later, I showed up to her apartment with divorce papers. She was very shocked and very emotional and told me that she didn't think I was being serious when I told her that I would ask for a divorce. I ended up filing for a dissolution, and since we don't have any children, it was a lot cheaper, and the process could be done a lot quicker. The divorce was finalized December of 2023. The past year since has been a struggle with trying to earn money to pay bills and trying to stay positive with my recovery. There was a lot of detail I left out to try and keep this as short as possible, so I'm willing to answer any questions that anyone has about what I went through and about how I'm doing. He said, my now ex-wife thought I was bluffing when I told her I wanted a divorce. Okay, so update. Again, love the content. I just heard the episode with my story. It's definitely a surreal feeling hearing my story be read out loud by someone else, and made me realize I wish I worded it differently, and I wish I would have given all the details. So to answer some of the questions that you guys asked, yes, she was talking to multiple guys during that time that this was happening. She only went for one night and then her birthday dinner. She originally told me she was going with a girl from work, and as you know, she didn't go, and the next day she asked me to put on a new screen protector, and because I had an uneasy feeling, I looked at her text and saw that she lied about who she was going out to dinner with. Now the other guy she was seeing for 4 months, I did the same thing. I was very confused about why she was moving out and told myself it had to be because she met someone else, and I went through her phone again, and that's when I found out about this guy. Now, I'm not someone who has ever went through her stuff because I did have trust in her. I also wasn't completely devastated because my mind was set on divorcing her when she decided to move out already. But it did make me look back, and the signs were so obvious I can't believe I didn't see them. Like when I had my emergency surgery, I asked her to stay overnight with me, and if she could take a few days off work to help me get home and around the house, since I would be in a lot of pain, and she refused to do both, and that was the same time when she started talking to the other guy. When I told her I wanted a divorce, she accused me of giving up on us, and I needed to suck it up and get over everything that had happened. I also texted the guy after all of this and told him I knew and pretty much said he could have her. Now, from what I heard from her, after that, he stopped talking to her and started giving another girl attention. Now, what happened after that? After she moved, well, about a month later, she was in a hit and run that resulted in her car getting totaled. While she was waiting to get another car, she asked me if she could borrow my car or if I could take her back and forth to work. I told her no, I needed my car and I wasn't getting up early in the morning to take her to work. She told me that it's not her problem, and I responded she wasn't my problem anymore and she needed to leave. She also would brag to me a few times about dates that she would go on, and I definitely think she was trying to make me jealous. But honestly, at this point, I didn't know what she was doing. When it was getting close to the court date, I told her I would pick her up only because I didn't want anything to go wrong and have the divorce be delayed. The day of the court date, I did pick her up, and the divorce was finalized with no problems.
Then you dropped her off.
I left her to take the bus.
Yeah,
No,
find a ride back.
Your Uber here.
Nice knowing you.
Now, for a little bit of karma, I found out that through a mutual friend that she had moved this guy in that she started dating a few weeks after she moved out, but she recently just had to kick him out because she found out he was cheating on her and seemed to just be using her for her car. Now, for me, I've been hanging in there, but still having medical procedures to be approved by the insurance. I am also in a new relationship, and it has been going amazing so far. I have been upfront with everything with her from the very beginning, so there's no surprises. I'm very open with her, and I can say without a doubt that my failed marriage and my new relationship are completely separate from each other, but I am open with her on any questions she has about it. I also wanted to thank the Comfort Level community. Everyone is awesome and the support is amazing. And then final edit, I felt like I should give a little bit of insight on what it was like before the accident. I was the one that was working more and was paying a majority of the bills. Now, about 5 or 6 years ago, she went through a really bad depression where she found out her parents were doing drugs and her mom had to be rushed to the hospital because she had a stroke and possibly a heart attack too. During that time, she pretty much shut down on me, but I stood by her and gave her the support she needed to try and pull through. After the accident was the first time she was the primary person paying the bills and was the person who needed to support the other person who was going through something traumatic. Now, just because I was recovering from the accident doesn't mean that she was going to work and she was going to do all of the household chores at home. I would do as much cleaning as I could, and I was able to do pretty much all the cooking. And since we don't have any kids, there wasn't that added responsibility and stress from childcare. And then top comment, wow, this is a lot of karma for her, and I love it.
Am I the asshole for kicking my boyfriend's mom out of my house? I, 25 female, have been with my boyfriend for 3 years now. A few months ago, his mom came to the US from India and has been spending the last few months in the home we got together. It all started when I kept finding her rummaging through my clothes on multiple occasions. I don't work from home and she doesn't have a job. Then I started to notice my clothes go missing, and I noticed she was slowly throwing my clothes away. I don't make a lot, so it was really upsetting to me to see my clothes in the trash. That's when I put 2 and 2 together. After that, I confronted her and asked her to please stop. She claimed the clothes were too revealing for someone who will be a part of her family. They are Lululemon athletic clothes I wear to the gym. I told her I can wear what I want, but that I will refrain from wearing the clothes in front of her. She stopped throwing the clothes out for a while, but then started up again, and this time, she actually started cutting them apart and throwing them out. I had had enough and got her a hotel room and put all of her stuff in there when her and my boyfriend were out one day. Now she's going back to India, and my boyfriend is saying he's going to break up with me because I disrespected his mom. He asked me to move out. We both pay half of the rent right now, and I just feel a little guilty. I know it is disrespectful in Indian culture, but am I the asshole?
What's disrespectful? It doesn't matter what culture we're talking about here.
You don't
What's
cut up someone's clothes.
Oh my God. I'm thinking about like my favorite jackets and things. No.
We do have an update. Moderators, man. Quit deleting the good ones.
Leaving them in 2024.
Yeah. So this is coming from December 11th, 2024, just a few short days ago.
Wow, I remember where I was.
I'm glad my travesty brought so many of you joy. I apologize for taking so long to update you all, but I was vexed with a life-altering decision, and I need to weigh the responses I received.
Okay, King.
I ultimately decided to tell my wife the truth.
Whoa, how'd it go?
Boo.
That should be clipped as like just I decided to tell my wife the truth. Boo.
I'm not sure I made the right decision after all, because I am far more embarrassed now than I ever was over this. I've never seen my wife laugh the way she did that night. Just when I thought she was done laughing, she would start up all over again. We now have this incredible inside joke for the rest of our lives together.
Aw.
Huge thank you to everyone who commented their advice.
Next time at a restaurant, so are you going to get the chicken parm?
Exactly.
That's sweet. I'm so happy for them. Love is love.
Tell the truth, baby.
Love is love.
Not all people would react that way. And I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying out there in general, I don't think everyone would laugh it off.
No, I think he did what was right for his relationship
Yes.
because he knows the nuances and intricacies better than any of us ever could.
Absolutely.
And love wins at the end of the day.
Happy ending.